Hey all, Paint Marine back here again with another matter of fact, and this is the big one. So got a lot of videos that'll be coming out soon, but the big FAQ that they had planned for March, they waited till after Adepticon, and then it just kind of got delayed because there's a lot going on. Tip of the iceberg here, we're going to start out with the PDF that they just are calling the Big Fact 1 2018. So, finalized match play rules. Now these were some of these were these were originally beta rules that they came out with prior to Adepticon, and then with the play testing and to see how things went, they have kind of tweaked them a little bit and finalized them now, so they're not exactly like their original beta rule was. So let's dive in here. So finalized match play rules. The following two match play rules were introduced as beta versions back in December. Based on the feedback we received since then, we have made a few changes to Psychic Focus rule to prevent it disproportionately affecting Grey Knights and Thousand Sun armies. These rules are now the final form of these two match play rules. So the Psychic Focus. With the exception of Smite, each psychic power can be attempted only once per turn, rather than once per Psyker per turn. Okay. And in addition, unless the Psyker attempting to manifest Smite has either the Brotherhood of Psykers, see Codex Grey Knights, or Brotherhood of Sorcerers ability, see Codex Thousand Suns, you must add 1 to the warp charge value of Smite for each attempt, whether successful or not, that has been made to manifest Smite during a given psychic phase to a maximum warp charge value of 11. For example, if an Orc Psyker attempts to manifest Smite during a psychic phase in which 2 other Psykers have already attempted to manifest Smite, the warp charge value Smite is 7 for that attempt. Note, if the result of the Psyker's psychic test is more than 10, it still inflicts D6 mortal wounds instead of D3 as normal. So the biggest change here was this increased difficulty does not affect Grey Knights and Thousand Suns. And from the beta rule specifically, you subtract 1. I believe it was, you subtract 1 for each dice roll that you attempt, or I think it got worse each time, so like the first time you try, you subtract 1 from your roll, and the second time was 2, and so on. But then the adverse kind of effect of that was for people trying to deny the witch, was making it easier. So it was kind of like a double thing. It was making it harder for people to get Smite off, and then easier for people to deny it then as well. So they changed it to just make it the warp charge increases and gets harder to manifest, but it maxes out at 11. So no matter how many Smites you have, you can only max out 11. So then after that, if you still have more Smites, you're always just rolling to see if you can get 11. Okay, targeting characters was the other one. This was an attempt to prevent rhino sniping, as they called it, where people were using vehicles and other things to kind of do block line of sight, so then their other units could then target characters that were still in line of sight. So the final version of this, an enemy character with wound characteristics of less than 10 can only be chosen as a target in the shooting phase if it is both visible to the firing model and is the closest enemy unit to the firing model. Ignore other enemy characters with wound characteristics of less than 10 when determining if the target is closest to an enemy unit to the firing model. That means that if any enemy units other than characters with wound characteristics of less than 10 are closer, whether they're visible or not, then the enemy character cannot be targeted. So, same thing. Basically, you can't use your own vehicles, like your rhinos, to try to block line of sight of a unit that you could potentially shoot at, and then target an enemy character. But in retrospect, like this is also saying like you can't use characters to try to protect other characters. So if you had like a character that can either soak up a lot of damage because of their invulnerable saves or whatever it might be, you can no longer you can't use them as kind of a buffer to protect maybe a character further away or something. The essentially, if there's two characters, like one's closer, one's further, the it's as if I'm understanding this correctly, um, the attacker who is trying to target your characters can choose between two. Like one character does not block or cannot. I don't know. I guess yeah, block essentially block being targeting another character. All right, so then we have beta matched play rules. Now these are the new beta rules that they've released for people to try out and for them to tweak. So, following feedback, we are introducing two new beta match play rules, Tactical Reserves and Battle Brothers. As with our previous beta match play rules, do let us know what you think. So we have Tactical Reserves. The beta version of Tactical Reserves updates an existing match play rule presented in the Warhammer 40k rulebook. The ability to arrive on the battlefield mid-game was always powerful, enabling units that could do so to arrive where they will be most effective, whilst granting them immunity from attacks until they are on the battlefield. The original wording restricts the number of units that can do so to half your army, but the intent was half of your army's strength. So we have further clarified this to be half the power of your army. Even so, armies that use a heavy portion of reinforcement units are dominating many game details. Others decimate their foes on their first turn before their opponent has a chance to move any of their own models. We therefore felt it necessary to rein in the power of these abilities, and so during the first battle round, such units can only be set up within their own deployment zone. This means that to be most efficient, such units may want to wait until the second battle round. Note that we have not applied the restriction to Genestealer cults or abilities and stratagems employed by armies such as Raven Guard. The opportunity to deploy units in mass after deployment is a central part of the design of these armies. Now, I'm very happy about this right now because this was something that came up during the Warhammer Live stream that they had, and I was questioning, like, because when they first said it, I was like, is this going to affect the Raven Guard stratagem? Because right now I play my Star Commanders with the Raven Guard chapter tactics, and that stratagem is pretty awesome. The Strike from the Shadows, if you're not familiar with it, it's also similar to the Alpha Legion stratagem. What is it? Forward operatives or something like that. However, they don't specifically, at this paragraph anyway, I'll read more, but they don't specifically mention Alpha Legion, but I don't know. That could either as just an oversight or they're hoping, which I would say that it would apply to that stratagem for Alpha Legion as well. I think they're just saying that it doesn't apply to stratagems, just to data slates that basically say you can deep strike. Because technically the stratagem starts at the beginning of the turn, not the end of the movement phase like other deep strikes. So, again, the reason why I like this is because now really like going up against another deep strike heavy army, at least for myself with my Raven Guard, I'm gonna have a better advantage over them because it's a better turn this around, bro. It's a better deep strike essentially because it's a better deep strike if you go first. It could still be okay if you end up going second. But yeah, so basically the reason why it's a better deep strike if you go first is like you said, you can deploy outside of 9 inches of an enemy anywhere on the battle field, like I said, outside of 9. But it happens at the beginning, like after you figure out who's going first, but before the first turn happens. Therefore, they set up, and then turn 1 starts. So they can still move, So if you have like aggressors with flamers, they can get in range if they're not, because it's only 8-inch range now. They can move and get into range. Plus with power fist, if they need to knock some armor, they can move. Granted, 5-inch movement, but still, you can put them in pretty close to something. Hellblasters, my favorite thing. Like I had that narrative tournament that I participated in, 10 Hellblasters, strike from the shadows. I had turn one. I went right for every juicy thing I could. So like Riptide, turn one, overcharged them, Riptide gone. Um, yeah, I'm very happy about that. This is yeah, very happy. Anyway, and because now essentially my turn one, Raven Guard are an alpha strike for sure with that stratagem still in place because yeah, and the reason why I say like it's still pretty good if you have second turn, just because at the very least you can probably get like certain units in closer, um, so in range, but then plop them in cover somewhere. So like again, if like the Hellblasters have a pretty good range of 30 inches, and if you're going to turn two, well then you're gonna deploy them into cover. So now they're having a 2-up save and cover, um, you know, bar any negative modifiers or whatever. But still, that's better than nothing. But yeah, all right. So let's get into the actual paragraph here on tactical reserves. Instead of being set up on the battlefield during deployment, many units have the ability to set up in teleportariums, in high orbit, in reserve, etc. In order to arrive on the battlefield mid-game as reinforcements, when setting up your army during deployment for a match play game, at least half the total number of units in your army must be set up on the battlefield, and the combined power rates of all your units must be set up on the battlefield during deployment, including those that are embarked with in transports that are set up on the battlefield, and must be at least half your army's total power level, even if every unit in your army has the ability that would allow them to be set up elsewhere. Furthermore, in match play games, any unit that arrives on the battlefield during a player's first turn must deploy wholly within their controlling player's deployment zone, even if this ability would normally let them set up elsewhere. This does not apply to the Genestealer Cult's unit that is being set up according to the Cult Ambush ability, or for those units that are set up in the first battle, that are set up after the first battle round has begun, but before the first turn begins, such as those that set up via forward operatives. So that's the Alpha Legion one, or strike from the shadow stratagems. Okay, so finally, any unit that has not arrived on the battlefield by the end of the third battle round in a match play game counts as having been destroyed. So that's pretty regular. So there they actually point out the Alpha Legion stratagem that's the same as the Raven Guard. Um, yeah, I like that. It, of course, is a beta rule, so it may or may not come up, but I definitely like that. And it also specifically talks about power level, so half your power level of your army, not half the points, which I thought maybe they could be interchangeable. So if you're playing power level versus points, but to me that means like, okay, if you're playing points, so 1,000-point list, well, but you still go, instead of going off of points, you're going off of power level still of what has to be set up on the board, which is it's interesting. Okay, let's see. Then we have Battle Brothers. The beta version of Battle Brothers is brand new match play rule we'd like to test. We originally wrote this edition of Warhammer 40k, or 40,000, sorry. We wanted to make sure that your army could include appropriate allies. For example, an Imperium army, Imperial Guardsmen, and Space Marines should be able to fight side by side. In a Chaos army, Chaos Space Marines should be able to burn the galaxy alongside their demonic minions. The rules for what these units could be included in each detachment were therefore very relaxed, but this in a sense led to some very mixed detachments that include units from far more factions than we originally envisioned. We feel that these eccentric, mixed detachments are far better suited to narrative or open play, and we've decided to try out this rule for match play games. This means you can still include appropriate allies, but now they might need to include in a different detachment. There are a few units in certain index books that would be difficult to include in match play army. Follow these restrictions, so we have written errata to enable players to more easily include these units in their army. These changes appear in the appropriate FAQ and errata documents, but are shown below for convenience. So, Battle Brothers. All units in each detachment in your Battleforged army must have at least one faction keyword in common. In addition, this keyword cannot be Chaos, Imperium, Eldar, Yannari, or Tyranids unless the detachment is in question is a fortification enemy. This has no effect on your army faction. Okay, so I know like people call this soupless or whatever like this. This prevents from mixing a whole bunch of different things. I honestly am not really familiar with this issue because I'm not really sure how. Like for the most part, everyone I've played and how I play, like like I bring my star commanders as Raven Guard, so I bring just everything in there as Raven Guard. I don't try to ally in other uh, Imperium things. So all units attachment in your Battleforged army must have at least one faction keyword common. It cannot be. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure how this. I don't know. I'm a little. I don't know, naive to this, or not naive. Ignorant maybe. I'm not. My higher cognitive skills aren't great enough to quite grasp how this is meant. I guess because like I've never seen or tried to like include so out of a codex Space Marines like Raven Guard and Ultramarines inside the same detachment is what I've never tried to do that. At most I've seen people include a separate detachment, which it seems like this is encouraging. Like if you want to bring Ultramarines and Raven Guard, that's two separate detachments. You can't bring them in the same detachment. I'm not sure if that's what they mean or how exactly, but yeah, we'll go down and we'll look here at the erratas and stuff that they included, the related erratas for ease of use. So in Index Imperium, page 1, or Index Imperium 1, page 87, Damned Legionnaires abilities, add the following abilities: Saviors from Beyond. As long as the Warlord is from the Imperium, you can include this unit in a Vanguard detachment. Even if that detachment contains no HQ units. However, if you do so, attachment command benefits are changed to none. Index Imperium 2, pages 110 and 111. Prosecutors, Vigilators, Witch Seekers, and Null Maiden Rhino abilities. Add the following: Null Maiden. So long as your Warlord is from the Imperium, you can include this unit in a Vanguard detachment, even if the detachment contains no HQ units. However, if you do so, the detachment command benefits are changed to none. Index Imperium 2, page 114, 115, Vindicare Assassin, Caldus Assassin, Eviscer Assassin, and Cluxus Assassin abilities. Add the following ability: Execution Force. So long as your Warlord is from Imperium, you can include this unit in a Vanguard attachment, even if the attachment contains no HQ units. However, if you do so, the attachment command benefits are changed to none. Army of the Reborn. Replace this paragraph with the following: If your army is Battleforged and the Warlord from your army is Yavarin, the Visarch, or Ykarn, then you can include any of these models in the Craft World, Harlequins, or Dukari detachment, as defined in the respective codexes, provided the detachment does not include any of the following: Urin Rakarth, Drezhar Mandrakes, the Avatar of Cain, or any Harmocles Coven units. You can include these models in attachment even if you're using the Battle Brothers match play rule. In Yvarn, the Visarch of Yukarn is included in attachment. All Eldar, that one kills me. That change. Eldar units in attachment gain the Yannari keyword. These units cannot use any of the following abilities that are considered to have them: Ancient Doom, Battle Focus, Rising Crescendo, Power from Pain. Instead, Yannari infantry and biker units gain a Strength from Death ability as described below. The detachment is considered to be a Craft World's Harlequins or Dukari detachment, and can use the Craft World Harlequins or Dukari stratagems, warlord traits, and relics respectively. Note that these units will not, however, gain any of the detachment abilities listed in their respective codexes, such as the Path of War, Craft World abilities, Mask Forms, Dukari Obsessions, etc. Alright, so definitely check that out if you're trying to bring like these specific types of units that really don't have an HQ. But it sounds like as long as you have a warlord that shares a keyword, you can bring them in Vanguard detachments without the HQ attached as a way to bring them. But you lose anything that you would normally get from that detachment otherwise. Alrighty, so then we have a few other things here. Looks like we have, I'm not really sure what all these are for, because they've definitely updated all the other things. They've definitely gone a little bit further. So let's go down and we are at the interim balance review. Further to the above match play rules, we have decided to make a number of small errata to enhance the balance of Warhammer 40,000 based on community feedback. As errata, these are effective immediately and detailed below. The detachment command benefits. When creating a Battle Force army, the battalion and brigade detachment are seen as not offering enough command points for the number of units you must include. As a result, we have increased the battalion detachment commands to 5 and the brigade detachment to 12 command points. These changes appear in the Warhammer 40,000 rulebook errata, but are shown below for convenience. So related errata, so we have the page 243 of the big rulebook. Battalion detachment command benefits. Change the detachment command benefits to read 5. Originally it was 3, it is now 5. I like that a lot because that's the one that I normally take in a lot of things I've played. So I definitely like that because then again I've got more points to use for my Raven Guard stratagem. So definitely happy about that myself. Then page 243, brigade is now 12. I believe it was, I don't even know, 9 I believe it was before maybe. Don't quote me on that one though. But it's now 12, which is a hefty amount. But there's a decent amount of requirements. I think you need 6 troops and I don't even know, 3 HQ choices maybe, but yeah, that's a decent amount. So, Tide of Traders. The Tide of Traders stratagem appears to be too effective. As a result, we are changing it so it can only be used once per battle. This change appears in Codex Chaos Space Marine errata, but it was shown here for convenience. Related errata, Codex Chaos Space Marines, page 159, Tide of Traders. Add the following sentence. You can only use this stratagem once per battle. Let's see. Then we have Word of the Phoenix. The Word of the Phoenix psychic power appears to have too low a warp charge value for its effectiveness. As a result, we are increasing the warp charge value to 8. This change appears in Index Xenos 1 errata, but is shown below for convenience. So change the first and second sentences to read. Word of the Phoenix has a warp charge value of 8. If manifested, select one of the following friendly units within 18 of the Psyker that has not made a Soulburst action this turn: a Yunari infantry unit, a Yunari biker unit, or a Yukarn. Okay. Abilities which ignore wounds. Some units have ability. This is another. Let me just real quick. This is another one that I'm happy about this change. But anyway, so some units have the abilities that allow them to ignore damage suffered, and it's possible for some units to gain more than one such ability. These abilities have stacked in an unintended way, and as a result, we have changed their interaction, such as if the model has more than one such ability, you will now be able to use one of them against each lost wound. This change appears in the Warhammer 40,000 rulebook errata, but is shown below for convenience. So, Warhammer 40,000 rulebook, page 181, ignoring wounds. Add the following as a box out on this page. Ignoring wounds. Some units have the ability that allow them to ignore the damage suffered each time it loses a wound. IG, disgustingly resilient, the flesh is weak, and tenacious survivor. If the model has more than one such ability, you can only use one of these abilities each time the model loses a wound. So basically, no more stacking like a feel no pain type of thing. So you still, if it has an armor save, you still get the armor save, and if it fails that, then you can still take a feel no pain. But if you have other things that have auras or whatever else and kind of help them stack feel no pains. You just take your best feel no pain type rule, whether it's disgusting, resilience, flesh is weak, etc. Um, so yeah, so that's I like that. Just I think you see a lot of that stacking type stuff happening with Nurgle stuff mostly. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Not as happy as I was about that the reserve thing. I really like that match play rule just because it helps my army specifically. uh, but anyway, all right, organized play. While the organized events table on page 214 of the Warhammer 40,000 rulebook already restricts the number of detachment players can include in their army, this does not currently do enough to encourage players to take diverse armies while attending events following these guidelines. As such, we have added an errata column or an extra column to this table that limits the number of times the same unit can be included in an army when attending an organized event. This change appears in the 40,000 rulebook errata, but is shown below for convenience. So this, of course, everybody knows, stemmed from the Flyrant spam at Adepticon. I think a lot of the top lists had something like 7 Flyrants. So yeah, so this is part to help with that kind of thing. It doesn't limit them. Like Tau got the one commander detachment nerf, but it does kind of definitely cuts it down in half from like the 7 or more that we were seeing. So that's nice. And then also, I don't know if they'll mention it later on in this. I do know the Flyrants, I think they got like 20 points more expensive. So in that particular example. So, related errata, 214, organized events, replace the box out with the following. If you're using match play for an organized event such as a tournament, we suggest using the table below as well as a helping guide to the size of the battlefield and game length. The number of detachments each player can take in their army is restricted, as is the number of times a player's army can include a particular data sheet. Of course, if you are organizing such an event, you should feel free to modify these guidelines to better suit your event's own needs, schedule, etc. You can only include the same data sheet in a Battleforged army up to a maximum number of times, depending upon the point limits of the game as described. So, organized event guideline: point limit up to 1,000 points. You can have up to 2 detachments per army. You can have up to 2 per army of a data sheet. It suggests the battlefield be a 4x4 and the game length up to 2 hours per match or round. For 1,001 to 2,000 points, they suggest you can have up to 3 detachments. You can have up to 3 data sheets of a unit. Played on a 6x4 and 2 to 3 hours per round. And then we have 2,001 to 3,000 points, up to 4 detachments, and up to 4 data sheets, played on an 8x4, and 3 or more hours to complete. Now, those are Apocalypse games usually. I haven't seen, or at least myself, I haven't participated in too many. I just haven't seen many like Apocalypse style tournaments. Most of what I've seen is like 2,000 points and lower. I know like the narrative events and stuff like that. We've had like the TO there. He's been really good about promoting what we call Highlander lists, to where you do not bring any more than 1 of a data sheet, excluding troops and transports. And this actually on the bottom has a little asterisk. It says this does not apply to units with troops or dedicated transport battlefield row, nor does it apply to any units that are added to your army during the battle that cost reinforcement points. So like I was saying, it's similar to like kind of like we already have done in this, at least my local area, where the TO gives you actually like kind of like extra not victory points, but like event points or whatever you want to say, to bring in a Highlander list. So 1 of each data sheet of a unit except for the troops and dedicated transports. You can bring more than one of those, so you can actually have battle-forged armies. Alright, let's see, we're getting close to the end here. So intern points review. Whenever we publish a new edition of Chapter Approved or a new codex, review, update, and fine-tune the points values of all our data sheets. Following your feedback, several readers in particular have come to our attention as needing a point rebalance and felt it would be best if we publish the revised rules as soon as possible. As a result, if the points for a unit appear in one of the tables below, they replace those units that appear in the book published before April 2018. These update values also appear in Chapter Approved Errata and will be published in Chapter Approved 2018 alongside the comprehensive annual review of all point values. So I guess we're confirmed Chapter Approved 2018 will be a thing. Yeah, don't know when that'll be coming out, but alright. So we got a few units here, point adjustments. Astra Militarum Commissar is 15 points. Lord Commissar is 30. Astra Militarum name characters, Sly Marble is 65 points. The Commissar and Lord Commissar, those were without war gear. With Sly, this is including war gear, 65 points. Chaos Demon units, what is this? Feculent Narmals, okay, 1 to 3 per unit. Points per model, 85, does not include war gear. Craft World units, let's see, these are all our points per model and do not include war gear. So for 3 to 10, Dark Reapers, 12 points. Farseer, 110. Spirit Seer, 65. Warlock, 55. Warlock Conclave is 2 to 10 models per unit and is 45 points per model. Okay. Dark Angels, Ravenwing Dark Talon is 180 points, does not include war gear. Space Marine named characters, this was a big bump, I know. Robote Gilliman, 400, including war gear. And then we have Tyranids Biovores are now 50 points, do not include war gear. Hive Tyrant with Wings is 190 starting out without war gear. Adeptus Astartes units. So this is a Forge World, it looks like. Yeah, so Fire Raptor Gunship is 280 points, does not include war gear. Death Corps of Krieg units. Death Corps Commissar is 15 points, not including war gear. And Death Corps Death Rider Commissar is 35, not including war gear. And finally, we have the Irene Cults units. Chaos Fire Raptor Assault Gunship is also 280, not including war gear. Okay, well that is the last here on the big FAQ. Coming up next, I'll start diving into the codexes and Chapter Approved. Now, well, let me rephrase that. I might be as far as Chapter Approved because it seems like they've included a lot of the Chapter Approved changes in the big FAQ here. So I'll look that over, and if it is in fact no real change, then I probably won't do another video for Chapter Approved as I've already covered it in this video here. But probably the first one I'll be doing is the Codex Space Marine. Since I have the Codex, I can look through and compare the changes. And then after that will be the Tau, because the Tau have just gotten their first FAQ of this edition, as they're one of the newer codexes, and I have that codex, so again I can pull that and flip through the changes and read them, and then we'll just kind of go from there, working our way through because they updated a lot, and yeah, we'll dive in and get these FAQs out there, and yeah, well, again, thanks for watching, and until next time.